On today's episode of the Locked On Texan podcast, bye-week blues, no Texans football, but we can have a conversation about quarterback C.J. Stroud. How would you grade C.J. through 5 weeks?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around, especially my everydayers from the Himalayas. Making Locked On Texans your first listen of the day. And for my newcomers, make sure that you stick around for the conversation of what can be better for Houston, right? We'll dive into that to end off today's show. Also, in the second segment, Houston has been linked to maybe trading for Breece Hall. That's a name that I threw around in the offseason. If y'all remember, I want to say on the squad show, I was like, hey, man, I don't know if New York knows how to use this guy, and I don't even know if he wants to be in New York anymore. He can be traded. Should Houston jump in? But we'll also take a look at, is the running back room sustainable for Houston? Opening up today's episode, I think a very important conversation surrounding franchise quarterback C.J. Stroud and just grading him through 5 weeks. It's going to be a great show. Today's episode is brought to you by none other than FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Texan fans, let's dive into something that C.J. Stroud said a couple of weeks ago that I think is very important to highlight before we dive into our conversation. This was on the optimism and hope of the offense.
Yeah, I thought the quick pass game was efficient. I thought the run game was efficient in ways. There's a lot of things that I think we didn't get to because of the negative play. So Nick kind of had his hands tied around his back. You know, it's hard to operate in 2nd and 20 and, you know, those type of systems. And, you know, that's something that, sadly, we've gotten used to, and we got to fix that here. We can't expect to win close games like that. So, and we got to just make plays. You know, I think they made more plays than us. We got to come down with you know.
Different C.J. Stroud. That was a couple of weeks ago. C.J. Stroud has a little bit more swag. We've moved past the hat gate. But one thing that he mentioned in that specific response to a question was, you know, they didn't have an opportunity to get to everything because of the negative plays. Okay, the negative plays have been cut down a lot in the last 2 games. Throughout the week, I've given you guys some numbers, but the one number that I would highlight, I'm going to continue to highlight because I think this is the recipe for success. 3rd and short, between 4 to 6. This is where you see the Houston Texans operate a lot better with their offense and an offense that they're still learning. But looking specifically at C.J. Stroud, here's some numbers. C.J. Stroud, immediate passing rate versus the Ravens via Next Gen Stats, 5 of 5, 81 yards, 1 TD, a passer rating of 158.3, and also plus 1.88 EPA per play. His EPA per play has increased each week since the start of the season. In the last 2 games, we've seen he's had an EPA of 0.31 and an EPA of 0.64, respectively. He is currently 13th in earned points allowed per play, EPA up per play. On the season, he's also on pace for 3,700 yards, 27 TDs, and 10 interceptions. And, of course, that can change. He's also had the 6th best PFF rushing grade for a quarterback at 83, also a career high in yards per rush. How can we grade C.J. Stroud through 5 weeks? And at times, it's been a C+. And at times, it's been an A+. Considering all of the different elements and variables, I think a B is a perfect grade for C.J. Stroud with an argument of an A. I've said this before, dating back to last season, but really coming into this year, and the things that we do not want to see for C.J. Stroud in the offense is, well, listen, guys, we judge him too much on what he does under pressure. C.J. Stroud, this is week 5. They played in 5 games. Now we're in week 6. But in the last 22 games, has there been a quarterback pressured more than C.J. Stroud? And if it is, C.J. Stroud is probably right under that quarterback. So we got to take that in mind, right, into account. When we grade C.J. Stroud, I think there's a different scale we have to grade him on because of the franchise inability to create a sustainable offensive line for the future. I still think a lot of us have questions about the offensive line and what they can do down the line, and also going into his fourth year. But as of the last 2 weeks, they've been better. And because of that, what have we seen? We haven't seen the negative plays. The negative plays alleviates the amount of pressure on your quarterback to convert on 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10. And for Houston at times, 3rd and 15, right? So we don't see a lot of that. That has allowed for C.J. Stroud and Nick Caney to operate, I think, in a much more comfortable space, especially in the last 2 weeks. Also, we got to look at C.J. Stroud, and when we look at judging him on the pressure, because we've become accustomed to seeing him under pressure, when C.J. Stroud is kept clean, C.J. has 8 touchdowns with a 75% completion percentage on the year. 75% of his throws are being connected on, right? When he's kept clean. 8 touchdowns on the year compared to 1 interception when he's kept clean. The quarterback has done nearly everything you can ask for from a young quarterback, learning some new terminology, concepts, and communication after scraping much of his first 2 seasons, right? And I look at things like this. What if your quarterback wasn't C.J. Stroud, guys? How would this team look? How would this team look? How would this team perform? You'd be missing out on a gamer at the quarterback position. And I think that's, when we look at C.J. Stroud and grading him, that's what he is. He is a gamer. The S2 test was a conversation, and a lot of y'all in the comments a couple of weeks ago was bring that up. Maybe that S2 test was a concern, right? I don't think it was a concern. I think that when you got, 300-pound men in your face all the time, it's hard. It's hard to get off a clean pass. It's hard to not feel like I'm gunshot right now. Here's another number that I think that we need to look at for C.J. Stroud, considering the job that he's done this year. On target throw percentage, C.J. Stroud ranks first in the NFL, a little bit over 82%. This is a franchise quarterback. Where we've seen the issues come into play hasn't been because of the franchise quarterback. Now, like I said, at times you could say the C+, the interception against the Jacksonville Jaguars game. Not the one at the end of the game. I think that was a tip pass, but the one where he was targeting Christian Kirk on the sideline. Right? You look at completing that pass, you look at sustaining the drive, you look at Houston coming away with that, coming away from their drive of points, right? There were moments in the Rams game, there were moments in the Bucs game where I thought to myself, I've seen him make that throw before. I've seen C.J. Stroud stand in the pocket and deliver on some of these throws when the pressure is breaking down. The problem is, when was the last time I've seen that, right? And also, when I did see it, was the trust there from his receivers like Tank Dell, who's no longer playing for Houston because of the injury, right? He's still in Houston, but he's not playing right now. Stephon Diggs, who is with a completely new franchise, right? Robert Woods, who I don't even think he's in the league. Some of those guys that C.J. Stroud was throwing to, the chemistry was there. The placement on those balls were there because I know where he's going to be. The first 5 weeks all together, and I think the last 2 weeks they did a better job of featuring some of their younger guys, but also not putting them out there in spots or situations where what the offense is asking of them they may not be ready for. But in the first 5 weeks of the season, we got to take into account that this young man has a lot of new around him, new terminology, trying to make sure that the communication with the offensive line is where it needs to be so he can stay upright. That's number one. Playbook, new offensive coordinator, new weapons, and he's learning all of this in a span of 7 months. So things changed a lot around the quarterback. And I think, again, when you look at the on-target throws, when he got time, 82%. When he got time and when he's kept clean, 75% completion percentage, 8 touchdowns. And then you're also starting to see him in the last 2 weeks have more fun. That needs to continue. But I think grading C.J. Stroud right now and giving him a B is extremely fair. We've also seen a more concentrated effort from the quarterback. As much as I shouted out D'Amico Ryans and not taking any of that away, but we've seen a much more concentrated effort from C.J. Stroud to get this thing together. And that was a concern of mine coming into the training camp and in the first 3 weeks of the season. I'm like, hey, yo, what do you mean lollygagging? But you see him making those strides to be the leader from the quarterback position from this franchise. I think a B is solid. I think a B is fair. You guys let me know how you feel about CJ Stroud, grading him in the comments, because when we get back, we got to talk about the running back room. A lot of y'all like the Rook. A lot of us have understood that Nick Chubb is important. Is there room for change? Is there room for improvement? Or the duo that they have right now, is it sustainable if we're ever going to see Joe Mixon back in Houston playing football? When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honesty lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service has always had your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The Part Finder tool and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, who don't like lower prices, I know I do, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free. Use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service, and you can get it real fast. Texas fans, now let's have the conversation that I think is very important to have. When this team has run the ball well, they've won games. When they run the ball consistently, they've won games. The running back room right now for Houston, I think, has a certain, I don't want to say je ne sais quoi, but they have a certain dynamic to themselves right now. Nick Chubb seems to be getting his legs under him. I don't want to have this conversation without highlighting that the carries are not there for Nick Chubb, and I don't think the carries should be. We shouldn't see the carries at 20. We shouldn't see that for Nick Chubb. I think between 8 to 14, I think that's a good carry amount for Chubb. But the old man, he's putting together a nice season for the Houston Texans, and I just want to look at the snap share and some numbers for the running back room right now. Look at the snap count share. Nick Chubb, 46%. This has led to 249 rushing yards, 12 first downs, 4.3 yards per carry with a 45% success rate. Now let's go to the young man, the Rook. 37% of the snap share. This has led to 137 rushing yards, 6 first downs, 3.8 yards per carry. That is an ugly number. That needs to improve, of course, with a 39% success rate, plus 16 yards per catch, 63 yards. So 6 first downs on the air, through the air, this year. They both have scored twice for the Houston Texans. Houston is in the middle of the pack in rushing yards per game, rushing yards total on the season, and yards per carry. Dead even or close to it compared to the rest of the NFL. And we know the last 2 games, Houston has rushed for a combined 296 rushing yards, 35 points per game in that span. D'Amico Ryans recently mentioned that the game plan for the week will determine which running back we may see featured more, or I think a more accurate depiction of that is which back will receive more carries and opportunities. Is this sustainable? Houston has been linked to trading for Breece Hall. Now, keep in mind, when you look at what assets the Houston Texans have, 2 second-round picks, 2 fourth-round picks. If I'm Houston, I'm not trading my second-round pick, either one of those second-round picks. The 2 fourth-round picks, and the highest fourth-round pick, I think, is a little bit more realistic for the Houston Texans. On the year, Breece Hall, 5.3 yards per carry, 351 yards. Last year, 876 yards on the year, 4.2 yards per carry. The year before, 4.5 yards per carry. The year before, his rookie year, 5.8 yards per carry. The thing is, he doesn't get a lot of touches. He could be very valuable for the Houston Texans. Before we look at elsewhere, let's look in-house. Is the running back room, as it's currently put together, sustainable for the Houston Texans? And let's add to that conversation, is it sustainable until we get an opportunity to find out the return date for Joe Mixon for the 2025 year? I am of my own belief. I don't think we're going to see Joe Mixon this year. And I'm going to take it a step further. There's no reason Houston should bring back Joe Mixon if Houston is not in the playoff race. So if he is able to return, but if Houston is looking at a number that puts them a little bit further out from AFC wildcard or the AFC South division, I don't think we should see Joe Mixon. And I think at that point, Houston needs to reevaluate the future with Joe Mixon moving forward. This has nothing to do with Joe Mixon in his career. Joe Mixon is a fine running back. Joe Mixon was hit at or behind the line of scrimmage more than any other running back in 2024 and still rushed for 1,000 yards. Joe Mixon is absolutely needed for Houston. The question is, that injury has had so much skepticism around it for Houston. If you even want to think about keeping Joe Mixon for the future, because Nick Chubb is on a 1-year deal. Joe Mixon has 1 year left on his 3-year extension that Houston signed when he got here. Who's more valuable for next year, considering you have Woody Marks and the idea of the team still needs to make an upgrade for their future running back? I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I love Woody Marks as a back. I think he's a dynamic back. Do I think he's a Pro Bowler or a future All-Pro? Not at this time. Can Houston go out there and find one and shop for one? I absolutely think so. Is Breece Hall that player? Maybe if Houston feels like we got a real shot. The bye week is November 4th. I think that's week 9. If they got a real shot at this thing, it's all about making smart upgrades. And that's something the Houston Texans have not really done this year. Some of those offseason signings haven't been the best. What I like about the idea of this running back room being sustainable until Joe Mixon comes back, it gives you a full running back room. We should not see any more Dameon Pierce carries. It gives you British Brooks at fullback. And I got to take it back. British Brooks, I think, has been a very good fullback for the Houston Texans. And he can also give you a threat to run the ball out of the backfield from the fullback position. Catch the ball out of the backfield for the fullback position. But if Joe Mixon is not returning, and you look at a team that had already dug themselves in an 0-3 hole, the Seattle Seahawks game is going to tell it all. As of right now, I don't think that this running back room is sustainable for a playoff push. What the optimism is, at least for me, is because of how the offense, we presume they're going to continue to utilize them, there's not a one running back system here. But will other teams figure out the tendencies of the offense when you see one or the other? Now, granted, when Woody Marks is in the game, on everything, pass blocking, running the ball, catching the ball, right? Nick Chubb, you see more reserved to running the ball, and I get that. But Houston needs a dynamic playmaker. Houston needs someone that can kind of replicate what Joe Mixon did in 2024, and that is, if there's a body in front of me at the line of scrimmage, I can make that man miss, and I can still go and get 4.5 yards per carry. I can still go get 5 yards here. I can still help the offense look at 2nd and 3 instead of 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 11. And that player may be Breece Hall. I've never thought that the New York Jets utilized Breece Hall to the best of his abilities. And I gave you guys his rushing yards per carry on his career. He averages 4.6 yards per carry. Twice in his career, he has rushed for over 5 yards per carry. And then you also look at his dynamic that he brings out of the backfield, 8.5 yards per catch, 11.5 yards per catch, 8.8 yards per catch. He can be a dynamic running back out of the backfield as well. And also, I think Breece Hall can be a true number one that can help Houston this year, next year, and after that. The talent Breece Hall has, his ability to kind of be a combined version of Nick Chubb and Woody Marks, running the ball effectively, catching the ball effectively. On his career, he has 8 receiving touchdowns, and he also has 14 rushing touchdowns, 0 this year. That speaks to where the New York Jets is right now as a franchise on the field. Shout out to Aaron Glenn, Nimitz native, Houston native, Nimitz grad. I think he's going to do a good job as time goes on. He needs to get himself a quarterback. But here on the Locked On Texans podcast, I want to say I think Houston should absolutely trade for Breece Hall. Because if Joe Mixon doesn't come back, you still need another back to give you a full running back room that gives threats at every phase and level of the game, right? And we're looking at Nick Caley. I want to say this before we move on. We're looking at Nick Caley, who was around the James White backfield, the backfield that featured Shane Vereen, the backfield that featured LeGarrette Blount, the backfield that featured multiple backs doing multiple things. There was not one featured back during a span in New England, right? And we've already come to realize that the running concepts and some of the passing concepts, he's pulling directly from that tree. That Charlie Weiss to Josh McDaniels to that tree, he's pulling from that. Right now, Houston only has 2 of those guys. Damian Pierce ain't gonna do it. No disrespect to Damian Pierce, but I think Houston needs to find a way to. They've looked out for a lot of different players. I think Houston needs to look out for Damian Pierce and let him go find a new home. But if you can get that third running back that can do everything, and then you have other 2 running backs on your team that can do certain things great, that gives your offense, that gives CJ Stroud, that gives Nick Caley pretty much 2 weapons in one. So Breece Hall is the guy for me. Now, when we come back, what can Houston be better at to close out the year once they come back from their bye week? I'm going to tell y'all what you can be better at. Making sure your Sundays and Saturdays and Mondays, Seattle versus Houston Monday night, and Fridays and Thursday, making sure your time watching football has more excitement, and the NFL season is here. This is where FanDuel has an offer that comes in and you cannot miss it. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and you'll get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet. Put 5 on it. I got 5 on it. Got a bet then I need to see. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel gives you so many ways to play. You can build different parlays, play props, even follow the live lines during games. It's making watching football more exciting when you got a little bit something extra riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app today to get started. Houston has some dogs on a team, man, but I started this Will Anderson campaign for Defensive Player of the Year. I also said that I think that he is the second best player right now on the Houston Texans team. NFL splash play leaders through 5 weeks. Nick Bettino's at number 2, but he's been balling. Will Anderson sitting at number 1, 23.6% splash play. And splash plays consider sacks, tackle for loss, just the overall impact that a defensive player can have on a game. So you got sacks, pressures, tackles for loss, no gain, interceptions, forced fumbles from recoveries, passes defended, tackles on 3rd and 4th down that don't result in a first down. Houston got 32 pressures, 8 sacks on 3rd down. Will Anderson has 18 of those pressures and 3 sacks. Phenomenal player, right? Phenomenal player. Love him. And it's how he plays, man. He sets the edge, and he does a great job of making sure that nothing gets outside of him. I would have loved to see Will Anderson in the matchup versus Lamar Jackson. I think that would have been crazy. We didn't get it because Lamar was out, but and I think Will Anderson was on the snap count against the Baltimore Ravens, which was good. I think he was kind of nursing something. And that team, by halftime, you really didn't need Will Anderson out there. But when we get back to that Monday Night Football game against Seattle, Seahawks is 12th man, Will Anderson going to have to be the 13th man, the 14th man, and the number 1 man, along with Danielle Hunter to get after Sam Darnold. Now, what can Houston be better at? What can Houston be better at? It's a C word that I'm looking for. C word. Is it consistency? It is. Consistency is key. I think for Houston guys right now, it's always good to stack good wins. Excuse me. It's always good to stack wins, to stack good moments, right? It's always good for that. To see yourself be winners, to go back on film and look at how you win games. But more importantly, I think DeMeco Ryans, one of the quotes of the year that I think that we may potentially go back to, whether if Houston win games or lose games, we'll look at how they lost games or how they win games. When I asked DeMeco Ryans about the weight being lifted off of their shoulders after the Tennessee Titans game, this is what DeMeco Ryans had to say, just to run it back one more time.
It's not about getting a sense of relief. It's about when we go out and execute and play the right way, that's what it can look like. And so we've been there. We just haven't played clean football. The offense did a really nice job of protecting the ball today. We didn't turn the ball over. We took it away. Tommy punted the ball, outstanding, give us backed up opportunities. Emi did a great job of kicking it off. Our kickoff team covered really well versus a good returner. It's just about us playing complementary football and playing clean football. We did that today, and that's the result. And that's what we expect when we do things the right way.
DeMeco Ryans mentioned being good at all 3 phases of the game. And when Houston has not been good in all 3 phases of the game, when all 3 phases of the game hasn't complemented each other, then that's when you see those bad losses. That's when you see those confusing losses. That's when you see those losses that come down to the last moment of the game, right? And you talk about the defense. Okay, against the Bucs, missed tackle on 4th down. You look at Houston be going into the bye week 3-2 instead of 2-3. 19 missed tackles in that game, right? Houston has cut down those missed tackles, executing better. Shout out to Henry T. I think that he took that personally, as he should have, and he's been playing better in terms of securing missed tackles, right? You look at the offensive line, protecting their quarterback, and also the quarterback protecting his offensive line. Guys, I'm getting this out to Dalton Schultz underneath right now. I just need time to snap, read, and react. So consistency for Houston across the board of just complimenting everybody, every unit complimenting the other units. On the defensive side of the ball, the 2 D tackles, be where you are. Everything will be flushed back inside to you because of how those D ends play. They play discipline on the outside, which is crazy because you'll see Danielle Hunter on one side hit a Euro step spin, tween, filet. Then on the other side, you'll see Will Anderson just with some bull rush that it feels like Shaq is in the paint again in 2001. Those guys on the inside, just be where you need to be. Linebackers, those gaps are going to be open for you to crash down on and make a play at or behind the line of scrimmage. Secure the tackle, right? Also be disciplined, have good eye discipline to understand when maybe a trap block is coming. Take that trap blockers on, whether it's a play action, don't overly commit. That's going to help the back end of the defense, the DBs, right? So complement each other in all 3 phases on the defense. For the offense complement your quarterback complement your offense and get the ball out when needed, but also when you can make those throws, and we've seen C.J. Stroud make consistently, continue to be consistent at it. Limit that pressure. Let's not judge him on the pressure. Let's judge him on when he's a clean quarterback. Make sure that you're and running backs and tight ends. Protection. All together now. All hands on deck. Recognize what the defense is. Recognize what the coverage is. Recognize who's a hot man, who's coming through, who's blitzing. Make the necessary adjustments to give your quarterback time. And when he gives you the ball underneath, maybe in the seam, or maybe on the screenplay, get upfield. Let's get some extra yards. Let's get some good yak yards going on. That's what's going to take for Houston to climb themselves fully out of the 0-3 hole, which they're doing right now, right? And then you get to 500. And then you get to over 500. And then the AFC South conversation, division conversation becomes a little bit more believable. And then the conversation on, okay, can they make that last wild card spot or one of the wild card spots? That becomes more believable. Houston back in the playoffs in 2025, 3 straight years, becomes believable. But when we look at what the Houston Texans can do better, compare the first 3 games towards the last 2 games. The headline of that probably should be Houston cuts penalties down, Houston scored more points. Houston cuts penalty downs, the third down situation is more advantageous to convert. That is what the Houston Texans can do for themselves. Thank you for listening to this Friday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Let's go into the weekend with this thought in mind. You don't have to stress this Sunday. Texans ain't playing football. They're in the NRG Stadium off 610 and Kirby. They're figuring things out. They're trying to get themselves better. Players are resting. Hopefully the coaching staff is resting as well. Those guys do a great job of coaching all 3 levels, all 3 phases. You ain't got to stress this Sunday. You can sit back, have yourself a beer, maybe DoorDash some food, and watch other players and watch other teams stress. That's what you can do. But until next time, ladies and gents and Texas fans across the nation, peace.